Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Farah speaking. I am a life and mental health coach. A little bit of introduction about myself before we get started. I've always wanted to study psychology and I've always wanted to be in the mental health field. However, because of the stigma at the time when it comes to psychology and mental health, I wasn't able to study. However, I graduated architecture, and after working for a couple of years in the field, I decided to finally pursue my passion. I've taken several courses. I've been working in the field for the past couple of days, and excuse my voice. I'm not sure. The weather is weird and it's affecting me in weird ways as well. But yeah, let's get to our topic for today, which is enabling behaviors and their impacts on mental health and relationships. If anything, us as human beings, we're adaptable. Our mindsets are molded in such a way that we tend to adapt to change because it is essential for our own survival, right? And this simple fact is true of most situations, whether they be physical or even mental. And while we may not be constantly aware of the fact that we are adapting to situations or that anything and everything that happens around us has an effect on our own behavior, a simple observation of our own mannerism will drive to this point home. Even though it is sometimes simple enough to read behavior, let's say sad news will lead to for a person to cry, or let's say happy news will provide us a smile or a simple laugh. There are certain complicated negative situations that lead to changes in behavior that may not be easily observable. And these are known as defense mechanisms. When we talk about defense mechanisms, there are these certain coping techniques that are used to deal with and lessen the intensity of anything that is negative, unpleasant, and threatening to us. And this is essential in order to maintain positive mental health. So, what does enabling behavior mean? What does this all have to do with anything? Enable behaviors, if you want to actually define or take a look at the definition of it, they are the actions or behaviors that unintentionally support or reinforce unhealthy patterns or behaviors in others, often to the determinant of both parties involved. And this can occur in various relationships, whether we can see it in family dynamics, in friendships, or specifically in romantic partnerships. That can involve some behaviors such as avoiding conflict or even shielding someone from facing consequences or perpetuate dependency as well. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more as we move forward with the video. Enabling behaviors can manifest in various ways, and these patterns or dynamics can be quite common across different types of relationships. Have you ever find yourself covering up mistakes or consequences? Because this is one of the common patterns where you might find yourself repeatedly trying to cover up for the other person's mistakes or shielding them from facing consequences. This can include making excuses, lying to protect the person, or taking on responsibilities that are not theirs to bear. So this can be common, and this can be seen in parents, right? Trying to constantly cover up for their kids' mistakes, or trying to overly shield them from danger. While some sort of protection can be helpful to the other person, right? It makes them feel that we're there, that we care, we're there for them, we've got their back. However, we will learn later on that the more that we do it, the more harm we're actually creating for the other person, the more codependent we're making them feel, the less, what's the word here? The less trusting they become about their own abilities of themselves and their own capabilities. Or another way that can show up in toxic relationships, where you might find yourself constantly trying to cover up for your partner's mistakes, or lying when it comes to contacting your friends or your family. Oh, hey, how are things going? Is everything okay? How's your relationship? How is X, Y, and Z? And while you might be in an extensively abusive situation or relationship, you might find yourself making up excuses, or trying to lie to cover up that kind of behavior, or that kind of situation that you've been experiencing. The other, another common patterns or how it can manifest is rescuing or fixing. Enablers may often engage in that rescuing behaviors, where we might find ourselves constantly try to fix problems or rescue the other person from difficult situations. And again, while these actions may come from a place of care, they can prevent the other person from learning to manage their own challenges and their own responsibility. So again, a lot of the time, a lot of behaviors come from a place of love and care. However, sometimes we might unintentionally cause harm to the person that we care and love the most. Another way is overlooking boundaries. When we're enabling someone, or we are leaning more towards that enabling behaviors, we may have a tendency to overlook or ignore our own boundaries in order to accommodate the other person's needs or their demands. And this is something that I personally resonate with, and this is something that I've been working on, because this can lead to a lack of self-care and an imbalance in a relationship dynamic. So let's say someone constantly try to push those boundaries, someone constantly try to do a certain behavior that I don't personally feel comfortable with. And instead of saying, hey, I'm not really comfortable with this. Can we talk about it? Can we do something about it? Can we try to adjust this kind of behavior in a way that, this can work for the both of us? We might sometimes find ourselves trying to avoid that conflict for whatever kind of reason. And this is something that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes as well. Whether by fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, not wanting to cause any conflict. And yeah, we'll be talking about that in a bit. But this is one way that by overlooking those boundaries, we enable the other person to continue doing this harmful behavior towards ourselves. Another way is, and you saw this coming, I hope, at least, avoiding conflict. And We sometimes may avoid addressing issues or conflicts in a relationship out of fear of upsetting the other person or causing discomfort. And this can result in unresolved issues festering and growing over time. And I want to hear from you if you've ever been in this situation. One small thing happened and then you would be like, you know what, it's not a big deal, doesn't matter. I don't want to make a big thing out of nothing. And then another small thing happened and another and another and another. And now you look back, it's this whole huge mess. And now the smallest thing happened, or sometimes even nothing happened, and you just poof, blow up, right? So we see that a lot of the time, a lot of these dynamics and patterns, they come from this good place. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. Because I personally as well, I'm guilty of most of the things that I've mentioned, and there are some things that I'm constantly working on. That doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, but it just means that sometimes we can unintentionally cause harm, not only to the other person, but also to ourselves, and most importantly, to ourselves. And this is why awareness is key. Knowledge is power. I'm gonna have to go through a few more things as well. Sacrificing your own personal well being. Because enabling behaviors often involve sacrificing our own well being, our own time, and resources excessively for the sake of the other person. And this can lead to burnout. This can lead to a lot of resentment and a sense of being taken advantage of. An example of that, let's say I'm feeling really tired, I'm running out of resources, I'm running out of juice, my cup is almost empty, and someone asks something of me, whatever kind of service of me. And because, I am overlooking my own boundaries, I don't want to say something about it just in case, I don't want to create any conflict. And you know what? I really care about this person, and I'm going to sacrifice my own time and resources to a fault just because I want to be there for them. Well, the next time, let's say I ask this person something and they say no, or another situation. Let's say after that was done, I'm expecting a pat on the back. I'm expecting some sort of acknowledgement in some sort of way. You're the best person ever. And that doesn't really happen. I simply get a thank you and we move on. Now, all these emotions are happening, all these thoughts are happening. Well, I can't believe that they're not appreciating my time. I can't believe I did that to them and they're now not being able to do this one thing that I ask of them. I'm not doing that out at a place of love. I'm doing that and I'm expecting something in return because I'm pushing myself to a limit. So I want that to be overly appreciated more than the other person doesn't know, right? I didn't communicate my needs. I didn't communicate my boundaries. How would they know? So, another thing that I want to talk about is perpetuating dependency. Enabling can unintentionally reinforce dependency in the other person as they come to rely on the other. Let's say I am the enabler. They come to rely on me to solve their problems or to meet their needs without taking the responsibility for themselves. And a lot of caregivers tend to fall into that trap to over baby, to overprotect, to overshield their own kids, to a way in which, oh, hi, this is my cat, Ollie. Sorry for the small interruption. Just pretend that it's a small ad of a cat exploring the house. Uh, yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, this dynamic can be seen a lot in family dynamics as well as relationships, right? I don't want to see the other person hurting. I don't want to see the other person suffering. So as soon as they say, oh, I go running to them. Again, please bear in mind that all of these can become coming from a good and caring place. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is doing us any service or the other person as well. Because imagine if you have created that dependency and that dynamic in the relationship, and then something happens, you become overly busy, you have this overwhelming amount of work, or you got very sick, or you something happened and you had to move it, whatever it was, and now that person is left with nothing. They try to reach out to you because they're used to doing that, and now you're not able to help. Or now that might lead to sacrificing your own personal well-being and your own energy and time, and end up being resentful. And you see how this cycle can go on, right? They're all somehow interconnected. They're all somehow related to one another. And in my observations, I've noticed these patterns in various relationships, again, including family dynamics where parents are enabling their children's irresponsible behavior, or partners who enable each other's negative habits instead of addressing them constructively. These dynamics can become deeply ingrained if not addressed, leading to this ongoing challenges and barriers to healthy communication and mutual growth in relationships. So recognizing these patterns is an important step towards breaking that cycle of enabling and fostering healthier dynamic based on that mutual respect and accountability. So I want you to leave me a comment down below. What kind of patterns or dynamics do you see within yourselves or relationships or even people that you know? And I do want to hear from you if you've ever found yourself unintentionally enabling someone else's toxic behavior. Because what we find is that we are fostering that unwanted behavior. And when we look at the long term effects of it, these are things that can develop all these unwanted burdens and conflicts, resentment, frustration, codependency, as well as lack of personal growth or stagnant relationships. And it can impact our own mental health negatively, whether you are in a healthy relationship or rather, especially when you are in a toxic relationship, not being able to communicate your own boundaries and pushing through those boundaries, that will enable the other person to continue with the bad and unwanted behavior. So, I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we can face in setting and maintaining these healthy boundaries, and how do these challenges relate to enabling behaviors. And I do want to hear from you in the comments below. Which one do you resonate with? And if there's something that I didn't mention, please feel free to share as well. The first, and we've already talked about this, which is very obvious, which is the fear of conflict, because this is one of the major challenges, is the fear of conflict or confrontation, because many people avoid setting boundaries because they fear it may lead to disagreement or tension or rejection. And this fear can be amplified in relationships where enabling behaviors have become the norm, as the enabler might prioritize avoiding conflicts over asserting their own needs. Another way is guilt and obligation. Feelings of guilt or obligations can hinder boundary setting efforts. Enablers often feel guilty about saying no. Um, and this is very, very common. And I'm guilty of that sometimes as well. Or even establishing boundaries because sometimes we worry about disappointing or upsetting the other person. And the sense of responsibility to constantly meet the other person's need can make it difficult to prioritize our own well being. Lack of assertiveness. This difficulty of being assertive is another challenge that relates to enabling behaviors. As enablers, we may struggle to assert our own needs, our own preferences, or limits clearly and confidently. And this can stem from the desire to please others, seek approval, or avoid that perceived negative reaction. And these are things that I'm going to be talking about in other videos. So I would strongly suggest that you keep on the lookout if you find yourself resonating. Another one is boundary blurring. Enabling behaviors can blur the line between our own needs and the needs of others. And this can make it challenging to identify where healthy boundaries should be set and to differentiate, sorry, between being supportive and enabling destructive behavior. Let's say I have a partner and this partner is being avoidant. This partner is barely giving me any time. To communicate. There's a lot of, I'm feeling ignored, I'm feeling rejected. And, if I ever want to or think about addressing that, I would start to think, oh, well, they're very busy. They don't really have the time. And this is not a very supportive thing for me to say to, add one more thing for them to worry about or be, to add one more pressure into their life. And this can be tricky because I do want to be supportive. But at the same time, do I really want to support or enable that behavior of neglecting my own needs and, um, being put on the sidelines of someone else's life? Are my needs being met? Um, how can I be supportive in a way in which I'm there for the other person, but I make sure that I'm there for myself and my own needs. A few other things: emotional dependency. In relationships characterized by these enabling behaviors, emotional dependency can be a significant challenge. Enablers may rely on the emotional validation or approval that we may receive from the person that we are enabling, leading to that difficulty in setting boundaries that prioritize our own emotional well being. Another one is one of the most common ones, which is the fear of abandonment. When we're enabling someone, a lot of the things that I have experienced, as well as I've heard so many different clients talk about, is that fear that setting boundaries or challenging enabling behavior could lead to the other person to withdraw their love, their support, or their connection. And this fear of abandonment can reinforce that cycle of enabling. As the enabler, we prioritize maintaining the relationship over our own need. And fear of abandonment is also one of the very, very relatable topic that I am planning on creating its own separate video regarding this topic. Another one is the role expectation. whether it's social or familial expectation. They can also impact the boundary setting challenges. For example, in family dynamics, they may be ingrained roles where one person is expected to fulfill certain responsibility or always be available, making it hard to establish boundaries that deviate from these experiences. Addressing these challenges often involves that combination of self awareness, assertiveness, skills development, boundary setting techniques, and support from trusted people or professionals. Recognizing the relationship between these challenges and the enabling behavior is a crucial step in breaking that cycle and fostering a healthier and more balanced relationships. So, do you find any of these familiar? Which one do you resonate with? And I want to hear from you. What motivates you to break free from enabling behaviors and create healthier dynamics in your relationships? And I also want to know, what strategies or techniques have you found helpful in communicating your boundaries effectively? Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below if there's any specific topics that you would like me to talk about, whether relating to this one or just, any other one that is related to mental health in general. And I hope you have a wonderful day or evening, whatever you guys are, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.